Hello and welcome to all of the series that I want to finish in 2023. Um, I've known about these series for a minute, and I wasn't originally planning to do a video, and then I saw a few and I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna read these unless I guilt myself into it. Not all of them, but like there are a few that I will definitely not read unless I bully myself into it somehow. So, I have 6, and I have technically started all of them, but there are several that are going to require rereads of the first book to like get into it. So, yeah, and most of them should not take me long. Some of them are short, some of them are long. I like series kind of, but my issue with series is usually that I read books together. Like in series, I'm not someone who can spread it out because it will negatively impact my enjoyment. So for me, the best way to enjoy a series is to sit down and read all the books back to back, which is a lot sometimes. If you're reading like a long, like 9-book thick sci-fi series, that's a lot of time spent in that world, and that's a lot of time spent reading those books. So I just put it off. So I have 6 to talk about here today. Yeah. The first is actually a sequel, a duology. The first 2 are duologies, so they're like barely series, but I've still been putting them off for years. The Lost World by Michael Crichton. This is the sequel to Jurassic Park, which I loved. I gave Jurassic Park 5 stars like 4 years ago or something. I loved Jurassic Park. I thought Jurassic Park was fantastic. My bookmark is still in this book from when I started it. I got 38 pages in, so brilliant. I loved Jurassic Park, and then I started reading this, and it basically opened with reports of my death have been greatly exaggerated. I'm actually still alive, y'all. And that annoyed me, so I just kind of put it down and never bothered getting back into it. I don't think this will be as much fun for me as Jurassic Park was, but I still want to read it. I still think I will enjoy it probably once I get into it, but I don't know. It was very easy to not read this one after Jurassic Park, and then I just never did. So if I read this, it's one book. All I gotta do is read it. I'm not rereading Jurassic Park, although I could because I loved it, but my plan is not really to reread Jurassic Park because I don't feel like I need to. I've seen the movie enough and read the book enough that like I'm good. I just I gotta read it. The other duology, real easy to get off my TBR, haven't for years. Us Against You by Fredrik Backman, which is the sequel to Beartown. I bought this before I read Beartown because in my mind I was going to love Beartown. Like, it sounded like my kind of book. I was so stoked to be down on the hype train for that because it just sounded like the kind of thing I love, and I read it and was like, oh, I didn't hate it. I think I gave it 3 stars, maybe 2 stars, I don't remember. I just found it so mediocre and kind of annoying and just not great. So I just never read the sequel. Do not plan to reread Beartown because that was not fun. But I would like to read the sequel and like maybe read a detailed synopsis of Beartown. Yeah. I don't know. I did not like Beartown, so I just never read this. But like, I own it. I bought it. I want to read it. I want to give Fredrik Backman another try by reading this, and then maybe by reading like A Man Called Ova, because I know that's like his most beloved book. But again, just put this off forever because And then the next 4, I have read the first, well, no, let's go with this because this is slightly. I read the first 2 short story collections of The Witcher, which were The Last Wish and what was the other one? Sword of Destiny. I hated The Last Wish. I did not like Sword of Destiny, although the second half of that book, much better than the first half. It showed some improvement for me. Do not fight. Blood of Elves is the first novel. I promised myself when I started reading this series that I was going to read at least the first 2 short story collections and the first novel to like give him a solid try. I didn't really expect to hate it as much as I did. It's kind of been like a several year project of like once a year I read one of the books, and it's just like unpleasant. I want to read Blood of Elves. My boyfriend really wants me to continue on to his favorite book in the series, but that's like the freaking 5th book in the series. Like, I'm not going that far if I'm not enjoying it. So I'm gonna give this book a try. If I don't enjoy it, I will DNF the series, and I will not feel guilty about that. But it means I have to finally read this book, and it's annoying because I don't even own this. This is his copy. So, like, it doesn't even get a book off of my TBR by reading it, which is why I've been putting it off. It just does not excite me at all. This has been a negative video so far. I did not intend for this to be negative, but I suppose there's a reason I haven't finished these series. Lord of the Rings by Tolkien. I read Fellowship of the Ring in college. I took a fantasy literature course, and the professor was like, we're all gonna reread Fellowship together, and I was like, whoops. So I read it for the first time in that class, and then I watched the first movie, and then I always kind of meant to finish the series and never did, which irritates my boyfriend because he wants me to like marathon the Lord of the Rings movies with him, and I refuse to until I've read the books, and I just haven't read the books yet. He's not pleased about that, so I do really need to read the books and then read The Hobbit, I guess, as well, but I'm gonna read these first. I like publication order. So reread the first one and then read the second two, and like, they are thick-ish, but they're also not like the longest of books, so I should be able to do this fairly quickly. Like, just spend a week reading Lord of the Rings and I should be good. I just have to make myself do it. And also, it's amusing to me that I haven't read Lord of the Rings, because it just makes some people crazy, which makes me laugh, but I gotta read it. And then second to last series, Tomorrow When the War Began by John Marsden. This is the first book in the Tomorrow series. I watched the movie for this when I was like 21 or something, and it was not good. So you might be thinking, Alex, why would you read the book if the movie was not good? I don't know. I was curious. So I read the first book, and the first book was not good, and it was the only one the library had. I was just so intensely curious of this, of what it was. Like, I did not like this book. I didn't like the writing style. I didn't like kind of what it focused on. Like, this was the first book that really made me see why people were annoyed with romance in like YA dystopian. Because I don't normally mind the romance. I like romance. I think it's realistic that when you're having like a very hard traumatic time in this difficult world, romance still happens even when it's inconvenient. And this was the first time where I was like, oh no, I understand those complaints now. It makes sense. Like, their parents are sitting in a concentration camp, and this girl was over here being like, I'm worried my friends are gonna think I'm a slut because I kissed 2 boys in the same week. And I was like, this is not the pressing issue here. So I was very curious on like the overarching plot of this. Like, even though I didn't like this book, I didn't like the writing or whatever, I was really curious where it was gonna go. Like, the overall, like, I don't really care about the characters, I care about like the world that he's created and this war, because basically a country invades Australia and it's kind of about that, and I was curious, so we'll be reading it. I don't expect to enjoy this, but I really hope that like the overall plot and like the way things go is more interesting than like the petty dramas between the characters. And then the final book, the final series, you can see down here on the shelf, Leviathan Wakes by James S. A. Corey, which is the first book in the Expanse series, which I read several years ago and loved, and I watched the TV show, most of it, and loved it. I still have to finish that. This was just so long. There are 9 books in this series, and they're all like this thick. I think they're like 5,000 pages total, or something like that. And like, for someone who just reads things back to back and just sits down and reads a whole series, that is a lot. So despite loving this, and despite fully expecting to love the rest of the series, because I've heard wonderful things about the later books, it's just so much. And I feel bad because I know I'm gonna have a good time and it's gonna be worthwhile. It's just like, it's so much. This is so many books. And like, that on the bottom there is only like the first 6. There are 3 more after that. And like, there's so much. So I've just been putting them off. But I really want to like dive into them this year. Like, really sit down, read them focus hard on them and have a good time, because I feel like I'm really gonna love these. The show was so wonderfully done, and like the first book was wonderfully done. I love the characters. I love kind of the arc of what happens and the various character arcs, and just I know I'm gonna love it. I just need to like sit down and read it and really just spend like most of a month reading these books. It's just gonna be so much time. But I'm really excited. Like, these should be wonderful. They should be so wonderful. I just need to read them. So those are the 6 series that I need to finish this year. I might read more, like beyond that, just read like other series, especially duologies, but I do tend to focus on standalones. So that's primarily going to be my focus, just those 6. Try to get through them, try to get things read, try to just like finally finish things that I've been putting off for years and years. Let me know down below if you've read any of those series and what you thought of them if you have, and as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see y'all again soon.